Went down to the Maryland Zoo yesterday because my sister is visiting with her kids. So we took all the kids to see the animals yesterday. And as I was walking around, Maryland Zoo is very interesting, hey? Because it was originally an old zoo in the 1800s. And they've turned it into a new zoo. And there were a lot of animals to cross over. We crossed over 800 animals from the zoo yesterday. A lot of human earthbounds too, dating back to like the Victorian era. So I'm a little exhausted. I was up. They even set off fireworks at 9 o'clock last night. It was way past my bedtime. Then I had a lot of adulting to do. So I'm on very low sleep at the moment. You might notice. Connor said Earthbound elephant. What else is there? Spacebound chickens. Earthbound. So I know it's kind of sounds laughable, but it's actually not funny at all. Whenever an animal is taken from its natural environment, and brought into a zoo or a place with cages and things, it's even if that animal was born in captivity, they still know they're hostages. I mean, if you take a human and throw them in a cage for their entire life, throw them in a jail, they're going to know. Freedom is something that everybody understands, regardless of how little freedom you've ever let them have. And so when an animal is kept in a jail, basically, their vibration is very, very low. And so when your vibration is extremely low, it makes it very challenging to cross over, because where you're going is a very high vibrational place. And a lot of animals are so locked into their misery, so locked into their suffering, that they don't even begin to cross over. And they're still in cages. And I mean, it's one thing to spend your life in a cage, right? And then you die in the cage, but then to spend the afterlife in a cage as well. And to stay, some of those animals were there for over 100 years. And yeah, I mean, it's a different perspective when you die, because time is not the same on the other side. It could have felt like 2 weeks. It could have felt like 200 years. We have no idea how long the perception is, I guess, for something like that, how long it's able to actually sense time passing. But it was very sad to find out that there are places where animals even are not crossed over. Last night we did a clearing on an animal hospital as part of our practice sessions for our SRT course. And we found over 180 animals stuck in the veterinary hospital. So whenever animals are in a place that is unnatural, it does make it a lot more challenging for them to cross over, especially if there are external forces kind of making things worse, like entities and all kinds of other stuff. One of the very first places I volunteered was a zoo, and I do recognize the importance of some of the work that they do, especially in regards to saving endangered species. I went and saw a rhino yesterday at the zoo, which as somebody who did anti-poaching in South Africa, I'm very glad to see. I mean, it was actually really strange to me. I've never seen a rhino with a horn before in person. And I got a picture yesterday. In fact, I'll even just share the picture, because why not? But you know how odd it is to see a rhino with a horn like that. In South Africa, you just don't see it, because even in their zoos in South Africa, they remove them because they don't want somebody breaking into the zoo. So last night, as you guys know, on occasion, I hang out and I watch my game cameras. I was watching a game camera last night, and look who appeared, a rhino. But if you notice, something is missing. Yes, it looks like a giant guinea pig, doesn't it though? But no, that is a rhino missing a horn. That was a rhino in the Kruger Park last night that I was watching. So, it just goes to show zoos may not be a good place. At least, they're trying, some of them are. There's other zoos where you just go in there and it's absolutely depressing. So my whole point is that, until we make the world a better place, zoos are a necessary evil, unfortunately. And going in there, though, yesterday and seeing 800 animals needed to be crossed over, it just goes to show how many of those zoos need more help, need more help keeping the animals happy, keeping the vibration high. there were a lot of demonic beings and level 1s harassing the animals there. So it just goes to show also that humans are not the only ones that have to deal with this shit. We're, the only ones that can talk about it and do something about it. But when you look at the animals and how much they're being harassed by entities too, it really puts things into perspective. When you see an animal like a dog that is, being violent and scared, and you look at it like, oh, that dog needs to be put down, you have no idea what might be attached to that dog or what that dog can see that you can't see. So I just thought I would mention it today to just put it into perspective that if you want to do SRT work, there is a whole nother side of this work that involves animals that I don't think we've talked about enough. Because animals are dealing with the same exact shit we are, just they can't tell people about it. They can't tell us what they can see. And, there's so much of what we deal with that we don't even take into account that the animals are also going through it. Chantal says, my African soul is vehemently against zoos, rehabilitation, and rescue aside. I hate to say it, but I've worked in rehabilitation centers, and some of them are just as bad as zoos. And I've worked in some zoos that are better than rehabilitation centers. So it really is just down to perspective and how much money and effort you're throwing into it. Because, it really just goes to show that if it wasn't for some of these zoos, some of these animals would already go extinct. If it wasn't for some of these breeding programs, there's certain animals that would no longer exist. But at the same time, if you look at this planet and how many species we've already lost, that's kind of the norm here. 99% of the animals that have existed on this planet are now extinct through all kinds of disasters that we've had here. The Great Flood and God knows what else. My point in all of this is just to say, like, if you guys are more interested in helping animals, spirit release might still be a vocation for you, considering how many animals are dealing with this shit too. So when it comes to spirit release, we actually have noticed that the animals are able to see things better than we can. We talk all the time about dogs and cats are able to perceive entities, but they're not really able to communicate with us about doing something about it. Is it possible to cross over the passed on slaves in Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean that had slaves? The Caribbean is massive. Okay, just clearing one property sometimes takes a whole team of spirit guides to clear just one property. So this whole planet needs a clearing. There were slaves on every corridor and every corner of this planet, unfortunately. This is what they did for 300 to 400 years, is they systematically wiped out native tribes and they enslaved anybody that wasn't, able to defend themselves. So, yeah, unfortunately, we have our work cut out for us. I encourage everybody to get involved in this work to help us cross over Earthbounds. I haven't been to Jamaica, but I have been to Grenada. And Adriana and I helped cross over 2,000 people just from one bay. Just from one bay in Grenada. There were nearly 2,000 souls that needed to be crossed. Yes, I do have an animal section on my website. It is both Spirit Release and Lost Soul Rescue. You just need to tell me which one you need it for. We do up to 3 animals for one session. If you have an animal rescue or something, we can work out a special deal to clear all the animals. But if you just have a couple, then yeah, there's pet clearings. Thank you, Charisse. Yep, we do pet clearings as well. That is both Spirit Release and Lost Soul Rescue. So if you have an animal that is acting very strangely and you would like to see if a clearing would help, then we do that. And if you have an animal that has gone missing, we can try and help with that. We have done clearings on animals before. In fact, there was a cat that went missing. And we found the cat in the woods with an earthbound child, which was really interesting. The cat was trying to keep the child company. When we crossed over the little boy, it was quite funny. The soul guides are like, he'll be home soon. He's hungry. And sure enough, within 30 minutes, the cat was back again. So the cat, ironically, didn't want to leave the little boy behind. And after we crossed the little boy over and called his mom over to come and get him, because the little boy died in like the 1920s. He was just wandering the woods. He was waiting for somebody to come and find him. So this little cat was with this little sweet boy. So when we crossed over the little boy, the cat came home. So you never know. If something like that has happened, then sometimes we can help the situation. And we also do Lost Soul Rescue. So if you had an animal that passed away in a vet hospital or during some kind of an accident, it is highly likely. And especially if you have a very deep connection with that animal, the more likely, I hate to say it, but the more deep your connection, the more likely they're not crossed over. They are very, very connected to you, and through cords and through concern and a whole lot of other things. So chances are the more connected you are, the more likely you're going to need a lost soul rescue for your cat or your dog or whatever it was. We've even found horses that don't want to leave their owners, or I should say their loved ones. Carolyn says that was an amazing session. The cat walked in as we were all still on the call. I know, right? That was amazing. The cat was missing for a while. It wasn't just like a day or two. It was missing for like a week or something. My cat is 5, and all of a sudden she's acting very strange at night, cries a whole lot. There might be something in the house that she doesn't like. I would get a property clearing, to be honest. If there's something, if the cat is acting like this, especially at night, and is crying at night, then there's a chance there's something that's bothering her at night. Keep in mind, there's a lot of entities that don't even mess around with us during the daytime. They just come and harass us at night. It was missing for 5 weeks. Holy cow, I forgot that. I didn't even remember how long it was missing. That's amazing. So this just goes to show you never know. It's worth a shot to see if we can make a difference. Summer said, I had a great confirmation about this work. I was sitting in the creek surrounded by ripples and sand, and I instantly felt important about how we are creating ripples in this work. A very emotional yet lovely feeling. It all matters. It certainly does. Well said, Summer. It's all interconnected. Everything is technically. Reminds me of the tapestry. For those of you who have read Dolores's book, you'll probably know about this, but there's a chapter in her book about the tapestry. So there's a room that you can go to. I believe it's in the Hall of Records, in the Akashic Records, where you can find this tapestry that is all interwoven threads. And it moves and changes, and it has all different colors and images that move and change. And it goes on as far as the eye can see. Like, this tapestry has no beginning and no end. But if you look really, really closely at the fibers in the tapestry, each one of them is us. One lifetime is interwoven into it as like a thread. And the closer you look at the tapestry, you start to realize that every single one of us are interwoven threads with each other, and that all of it is interconnected. And the further you look out, the more the image in the tapestry changes. Yes, Michael Newton also talked about the tapestry, and it changes depending on all kinds of different factors. And I think if you look at the tapestry going back like through the Dark Ages, I imagine like it was probably dark imagery on the tapestry, and everything was kind of dark and probably frayed a bit. And then if you look back further up the tapestry, towards our future, you start to recognize that all of these threads start getting very bright and colorful, and everything starts to shift, and you can tell things start to get brighter. It's like as you move into a golden age, the tapestry changes with it. And all the little threads, which is all of us, get brighter and more defined. So it is one of those things to prove that we are all interwoven, that we all have ripple effects that affect each other. Ray had a question. Can negative entities and Earthbounds cross through walls to come in our homes, or they use doors or windows? They use doors or windows. I actually have selenite above all my doors and windows. Like those little selenite sticks, like a stick of selenite. I even have one over my closet door. I'm looking up at it right now. Yeah, I have thin ones that are all over. So yeah, you can put selenite above all your doors and windows. And if you're trying to keep astral parasites out, let's say you have a lot of animals in the house already and you're just trying to keep out the astral parasites, if you take a cloth and mix citrus essential oils with the cloths and then put it up around the window sills, just keep it away from the pets if you've got them. But it does help to keep the astral parasites out as well. So I don't have pets here. So I use citrus and a few other things. I put it on a rag and then I wipe down my windows with it. Summer says that was one of the first visualizations that stayed with me. So important. We all have a part. The back of the tapestry is the chaos of how it all comes together. Yeah, you ever look at the back of a tapestry? That's a good point. If you ever look at the back of a tapestry, it is an absolute mess. So yeah. And maybe that's the phase we're going through right now. We're just looking at the back of the tapestry. Amy says, last night at 3 a.m., I heard my printer turning on and some creaking in the house. My cat ran into my room and jumped on my bed right next to my head and stayed there alert. My head started hurting. I called in my spirit team, Siddhartha, Zach, and Archangel Michael, and a few minutes later it was gone. I was doing a clearing, forget where it was. I was doing a clearing with Carolyn, and then the next thing you know, I felt pressure on my chest, and I was like, wait a second, hang on a minute. And then I said something, and then sure enough, that beastie opened a portal right next to me and tried to come in. Right next to me, little bugger. And it was a level 2. A demonic just came in. And I was like, oh, no, you don't. And immediately, whoop, gone. The sooner you recognize them and call in your spirit team, the better. Also, keep in mind, they like an easy target. They're like, you know how wolves will pick off like the sick and weak, animals at the back of the herd. They don't go after the strong, dominant animals at the front of it. They go after the stragglers. They do the same thing with humans. If you are somebody who is very fearful, somebody who is very, just a pushover, just very, what's the word? Disempowered. If you are a disempowered sort of person, they're going to push you around. Just like bullies do. Bullies go and they look for the person that's easiest to push around. So if you allow them to scare you, if you allow them to come into your space and you seek external, protection, then yeah, they're going to have an easier time messing with you. But as soon as you feel that vibration change and you say, oh, hell no, you light your sage and you say, get the fuck out right now, out now. You have to say it like you mean it. They're like, oh shit, all right. And they'll go and pick on the neighbors. Because they do. They come and check houses. They'll just go from house to house on occasion, just seeing what they can catch from people. So they're opportunistic, purely opportunistic. And if you're somebody, if you did what Amy did, where you call on your spirit team and you're like, not a chance, get the fuck out, then you nailed it. Then they're going to leave. So it's unfortunate that so many people are messed with. They don't even know they're being messed with. And if they knew it, then they would have more ability to empower themselves. Just for an example, like reptilians, they are very formidable. They can cause a lot of damage. In fact, they can even push people to their breaking point. But do you know what they can't stand? Sage and flute music. I mean, come on. I mean, if you think about it, they're such big, scary, individual things on their own. But then you get a whole bunch of them together, and then you really got a problem on your hands. But funnily enough, if you just light some sage and play some flute music, they're like, get me out of here. And they'll go somewhere else. In a way, they're kind of chicken shit. If you think about it. But the problem is people don't know to do that. They don't know. They don't know that they don't like those things. They don't know that what they're even dealing with. So it makes it easier for the reptilians to take advantage of that. So Michelle says, maybe that's why I've been called to relearn the flute. I actually have a penny flute that I bought for that reason. I've been trying to relearn it myself. But seriously, there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos of Krishna flute music. I have tested this, okay? It works. There was a night where I was being harassed and all of my mediums were asleep and it was like 2:00 in the morning. All I did was light sage and play flute music and they were gone in 5 minutes. They're like, fuck this. I'm telling you, it's funny that they don't like it. It's not going to work on grays though, for example. It's not going to work. The same stuff doesn't work on grays. This is a lot of the time why they send in the grays first. Because the Lizzies are like, I'm not going in there. It smells too nice in there. No, they don't like it. Especially if you use rose essential oil as well. They can't stand rose essential oil. So you put that in diffusers around your house. They're not going to come in. They're going to be like, ugh. And it's funny, last night I was doing clearings with a client, I should say for a client, and we found a stinky hybrid in the house. And Zach was like, if they would just clean their house, they would immediately make this home inhospitable to them. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, they can't stand clean house. If you have a clean house, many of them are like, no, I don't want to be here. But if you have a house that is like a hoarder house and you have so much stuff everywhere and you don't clean up after yourself and there's mess and trash everywhere, they're going to feel right at home. They're going to be like, oh, this is my place. I'm going to move right in. And the stinky hybrids are something else, eh? In fact, it's quite funny. I had one client that I said I just mentioned that there was a stinky hybrid in the house. And they're like, Lara, where was the stinky hybrid? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know where it was. We don't ask where it was hiding in the house. And they said, well, this is really bizarre that you would say a stinky hybrid because there is like this funky smell that we've been chasing all over the house for the last couple weeks And I said, what do you mean? And they said, no, it's a stinky smell that would travel. It would be in the living room and like in a corner of the living room. And then we would smell it and be like, no, there's something nasty. And they'd go and they'd spray the shit out of the corner. But then the smell would move. It would move to another spot in the house. And they're like, what the hell? Can you imagine if they didn't what they couldn't see in the astral? They're probably like spraying the stinky gray in the face with like air freshener. And it's no wonder it's moving from corner to corner of the house. So yeah, this is why, if you notice something is off in your house, you never know what might be in there making it feel off. Sure, he says Greys apparently hate corrupted data. When you know they're there, it compromises and affects their data. Something I heard might be good to test. Interesting. Luke says, whenever I think about Greys, I think about the story I heard of them accidentally abducting a special ops soldier who broke out of their trance and beat them up. They went and hijacked the wrong person. Most of the time when they don't need to abduct people. This is the funny thing about the Greys. I shouldn't say funny. It's not even funny. But this is the interesting thing about them. Technically, yeah, they can abduct people, and they have abducted many people. There's over 165 different known types of Grey, just for the record. So there are some that are very small and rather harmless and just focus on things like, I don't know, being the custodians of the planet. But then there are others that have genetically modified themselves to the extreme, to the point where they actually ruined their own genetics. Those are the ones we're dealing with. The ones that have ruined their own genetics are using our genetics to be able to fix theirs. So the damage they have done to themselves, they're doing to us, basically, to try and give a justification. It doesn't even make fucking sense, right? Like, they ruined their race with genetic modification. So what do? They genetically modify us and try to incorporate our genetics with theirs. But in the same way, they're actually starting to ruin our genetics in many ways, because they've been splicing and causing all kinds of stuff. I have found several clients that are part of a hybrid breeding program. Michelle says, are they the ones doing cow mutilation? Yes, absolutely they are. 100%. So it's not just the humans that are suffering from their experimentation. But keep in mind, whenever we find a client that has this going on, we go into their house. They have a laboratory set up in the house. It's in the astral. It's at a higher frequency, so it's not like you can't physically see it. But when we come in, the guides can see it clear as day, and they tell us all about the weird technology they have. They have all kinds of freaky tech that they leave around the house. In fact, I had a joke with Zach the other day. I said, how much tech are we talking? And he goes, 2 buckets full. I was like, thank you for the visual. We Americans especially, we don't like to use the metric system. So thank you for giving me that visual of the 2 buckets. Tracy says, I hope I'm not one of them. No, I tell them. My clients that are part of the hybrid breeding program, I don't keep that a secret. No. If you got it on your report and I said, hey, we need to have a private chat later and we need to talk about what I found in your report, then that's different. I have had to sit down and basically, because I couldn't just write it in the report either on occasion. So I'm like, all right, we need to talk about what I just found in your report. And they're like, like, well, this is what happens. And the sad thing is that sometimes when we start helping one person in the family, they'll go and experiment on other people in the family. Dana says, what is the hybrid breeding program? So there are, I guess calling them sects would be certain groups of Greys that are going out and doing experimentation on people. And they use their genetics, and not only their genetics, but even parts of them. They'll even harvest like sperm and eggs and all kinds of stuff from people. And then they will use that to create their own hybrids. And yeah, those hybrids are well aware that they are basically half human, half Grey. And I don't know what they want to do with it. I don't know why they're doing it. Some people speculate that they might be creating an army. Some people speculate that they're trying to create a whole new race. Some believe that they are trying to basically genetically alter humans to the point where we become basically like a hybrid of them too. Like they're mixing in our DNA and kind of overlapping the two. What I believe personally is that they're just, if you look at what happens with animals, right? And the sort of experiments that we do on animals, I think it's the same thing for almost identical reasons. They do it out of curiosity. Humans experiment all the time out of curiosity. They experiment out of need because there's certain physical ailments. Hi, Kat. Kat is here. She knows better than most. She says, I think they're trying to keep their race alive. Many of them are. In fact, as we mentioned already, they are trying to basically undo some of the damage they've done to genetic modification. Jessica said, do hybrids walk among us? Abso-fucking-lutely they do. Yep. Not even hybrids walk among us. They can look like us if they want to. You know how they have that filter that I'm always talking about, the 3D matrix filter? They can change how they appear. It's just like a TikTok filter. You can change your appearance to look like a 65-year-old woman to look like a 25-year-old. It's a filter. It's not real, but on the camera it is. On the camera it looks very real. Well, there are grays and even reptilians and other beings that can shimmer and glimmer and change their appearance and give you a false an illusion. It's kind of like a mirage or a fake thing, but then when you get them at the right angle with the camera, that's how you can see like scales and freaky eyes and stuff. That's why. So yeah, you'd be surprised how many of them can cloak themselves and shield and be walking among us like nothing. They already are. Why do you think that they're talking about disclosure so much? Because they already are walking among us. Why do you think when that incident in Miami happened, when they opened a portal and walked in and everybody started screaming, they were just kind of like, what? Like, they didn't even know that they were able to be seen. So this is normal for them. It's just about to be normal for us. Kat says, you can change it, but I can see right through it. It's all in the eyes. Yep. I had one client who is a medium, right? She lives in Australia. She's a very powerful medium. She contacted me to basically figure out what to do. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, there are beings that look like my husband. And I said, what do you mean he looks like your husband? She says, he will come home. My husband will say he's home early from work and he'll be walking around the kitchen and I will look at him and I'll have a conversation with him. And then an hour or two later, I'll hear my husband come home from work. And I'll be like, what? I said, so what do you, I didn't understand what she was even expressing at first. And then I asked the soul guides about it. This was quite a while ago. And they said, yeah, there are entities that will come in her house and pretend to be her husband. And she can see them. Since she's such a powerful medium, she can see them. And if an entity wants to walk in and pretend that, you know, that's their husband and give that appearance of her husband, then yeah, they can do that. So the guide's advice for her was to go up and touch them. Like, go up and poke it. So yeah, they will even come in and pretend to be someone. It's not even a skinwalker. It's just an entity. They don't have to physically shapeshift. They can just change their appearance. It's just like a filter. So there are skinwalkers. Skinwalkers are real too, but that's an actual shapeshifter. I'm not even talking about like a physical shapeshifter. I'm just talking about somebody who can glimmer. You know how like vampires can be like, give you the mind juju as in the storybooks, you know, about how they can kind of change what you see. Entities can do that very easily. Amber said, I saw an Earthbound in the neighbor's yard last night. First time ever without gaslighting myself. What do we do with that? You can book a property clearing and I can have a look. I'm happy to cross them over. You can ask your spirit team to try and help them cross over. Call in your guides and ask your guides to see if they can help them. If your guides have been trained in that and are able to do so. But also keep in mind that some Earthbounds are very stubborn. In fact, they'll do a runner too. When we tune in to clear a property, the Earthbounds they'll start running away too. I mean, to be honest, like, who knows what they are actually seeing when we arrive? There could be a whole, like, whole squad, including Irma's, like, just rocking up at the house, and they're like, ah, and they run away because they see our SWAT come in. So sometimes we almost have to, like, capture the Earthbound and be like, hey, calm down. We're not going to hurt you. Because they get scared and they run too. So sometimes it does make it even more challenging to cross them over. We don't force them to cross over, for the record. We don't like open a doorway and yeet them into the into the future. No, it doesn't work that way. We have to invite them in. We have to ask them. They have to cross willingly as part of their free will. So I saw a video, but I didn't watch. They were talking about how Elon and how the new God is coming from. What? Just keep in mind of what you guys are watching too. It has a big effect on what you bring into the house. I walked into my parents' house last night and they had the news on and there was a speech and it actually triggered me a little bit. I was like, why the hell is all this bullshit on TV in the first place? Like, I do a clearings on my mom 5 times a week, and I told her, like, if you keep watching shit, I'm not going to clear you anymore. What is the fucking point of me clearing you, and then you're just going to go and watch some trashy news and pick something else up? Like, no. You either stop watching shit or you're not getting free clearings anymore. That's the point where I'm at with my parents right now, because it's like a moth to the flame. They don't want attachments, but they want to focus on things that are giving them attachments. So just keep in mind, like, I don't watch anything with Elon Musk in it. I don't even want to look at his face. I don't want to look at any of their faces. I had one bluff charge me having a ciggy at 2 a.m. in the backyard. They're everywhere. They just walk around. Gemma says shopping centers are full of Earthbounds. Oh, no kidding, Gemma. They really are. A lot of them are just going on and doing what they did when they were alive. They're like, oh, I feel like going out to the mall. Okay, and that's what they do. I often wonder, like, what do they do? Do they get in their little ghost car? They take their little ghost cell phone and their ghost car and go back to the mall and just go ghost shopping? Apparently, some of them do. Cahill says the best thing you can do is disconnect from news. Throw your TV out. If you're using your TV for comedy or for educational purposes, that's one thing. But even then, you should be limiting it. In fact, I actually put this on somebody's report yesterday. The TV is ruining his brain. That was a quote from the guides. Direct quote. That's what they said. There was an older man. I believe he was born in like the 40s, so he's like in his 80s now. And that was the advice they said. Turn off the TV. It's rotting his brain. I was like, that's something that they would have told me back in the day. Well, it's true. So my dad called it the boob tube. He's like, are you watching the boob tube? No, I'm not. If you're going to watch something to educate yourself or to that's something that's amusing and makes you laugh, then that's fine. Completely fine. Jessica says, my muggle guilty pleasure is ghost hunting shows and sports. Well, you know, I used to be very anti-sports until I've noticed how much joy it brings people. And that's changed my tune. You won't catch me watching sports, but if you're happy watching sports, I'm not going to rain on your parade. You know, I do look at it kind of like the old circuses back in the day. This is a big distraction and all that. But some people, that distraction is all they have in life. Some of them are just work. I mean, the monotony without it would be just absolutely awful. So some people, you know, it's to each their own. If it makes you happy, then cheers. Ariana says, I love watching comedy specials. I'm with you on that. In fact, I watch old comedy specials more than anything else. My favorite comedian of all time is George Carlin. I've seen everything of his. I don't think there's a single clip of George Carlin's that I have not watched. And he was very abrasive. There were some things that he would say that I wouldn't even agree with. And I'm like, oh my God, George. But seriously, though, if it makes you laugh and if it calls attention to important things, then all the better. Sports are a huge distraction, but I can see the joy it brings others, so I wholeheartedly agree. Do what makes you happy. Yep, exactly. I love that you guys like watching old movies, too. I watch a lot of old movies. I watch a lot of period dramas as well. This is part of the reason why I didn't go to bed early last night. I was watching the new episode of Gilded Age last night. Baconing or gardening only for me. Oh, Summer, you're adorable. My backyard is my favorite thing to just sit and watch. I can see why you were named Summer. I wish there was a movie channel that just played movies from the 80s and 90s. They totally should. Isn't that like AMC now? AMC has become ours. Oh yes, Robin Williams was an amazing comedian. I do wonder on occasion if he has crossed over or not. Kat, what do you think? Do you think Robin's crossed over by now? He probably has. The amount of mediums and psychics that probably tuned in to make sure he was okay, I imagine somebody crossed Robin over. I'm too scared to touch Hollywood. I will not touch Hollywood with a 20-foot pole. No, thank you. It's just saying. There's certain cases, too, where I'm really, like, chomping at the bit to try and suss out and see what's going on in Hollywood. But nope, Hollywood is too dark. I agree. I hope he is crossed over as well. I hate to think of him stuck somewhere. He's my favorite person from childhood. Definitely Robin Williams. I can't stop thinking about the Titanic. Can't wait till we can clear it. You never know what's under the ocean. This is the problem. We don't want to go and awaken a kraken or something. Glenn said, Lara, what do you think about the intense weather? I blame the sun. I think the sun is acting very strange. However, I also think geomodification is probably not helping the situation. They've been doing a lot of experimentation. So it's hard to say whether or not this is natural. It probably is natural, considering the sun is also, I mean, the amount of flares we've been getting recently are crazy. What's the go with all this talk about the cube on Saturn? Kat's the one to ask about that. Do you know anything about that, Kat? I've been hearing about this cube for more than a decade now, but I still don't really know much about it. Isn't it? I think it's Draco, isn't it? At least this is the problem, though, is information on the internet is usually inaccurate. So this is why I try my best to get all of my information from my guides directly. Zach is pretty clued up on intergalactic stuff too. Michelle says, I haven't heard about the cube at all. They've been talking about this cube for so long. It's like this big black cube. I don't know if they call it a ship. It's like, I don't want to put out false information, so that's why I'm hesitating to say something. The cube is Saturn. See, this is why I say, like, there's information out there that I haven't validated. The Pleiadians do talk about it. Yeah, see, this is why I say mixed information. There you go. Now, I see I'm getting conflicting information too. Glenn says, can we unite and pray about the boiling summer that's about to happen in some places? I feel it even changes people's mood. Here, the people get violent while driving and things like that. Heat has always affected humans in that way. We get very cranky in the heat. But yeah, why not? You can set the intention. You got to remember that you are the center of your own holographic reality. You may be co-creating with everybody else, all intermingling our realities together, but you are still the center of your own galaxy, so to speak. You have the power to do things that are way beyond your comprehension. Reminds me of Adriana's story about, like, last time she had to go, there's a thing in Grenada where you have to go and re-register your car every year. And when she has to go down there, she has to drive all the way across the island to go and do this. And they have to do it in person because they don't even have these things online yet. So you have to go and re-register in person. And the last time Adriana went, she had to wait in line for nearly 2.5 hours. And she was like, I'm never, like, this sucks. Like, it was really hot and humid, and having to wait in such a long queue really just made her miserable. So this was a year ago. And so she decided this time, she even told Zach before she's leaving, she's like, when I get there, there's going to be no NPCs. I'm going to find a parking spot. I'm going to get in there, and there's going to be nobody in line. And when I get out, I'm going to have an easy time getting out, and there's not going to be any traffic. She was like, like, I'm adamant this is how it's going to unfold. And sure enough, she goes there. She finds a parking spot right out front. She goes in. Nobody is there. There's only one person ahead of her. She does all of the thing, that she has to do for the paperwork. And as she's leaving, 20 people are coming in the door behind her. And the line starts forming behind her. And she's like, holy shit. And then sure enough, she gets out and there's no problem with the traffic as well. She got home, no problem. And she cut her time down by like 2/3 from the last time. If you say things like this, if you speak it into reality, you have no idea how much you can actually change things. In fact, there are times where I'll come around, like there'll be a spot that I really want to sit and there's no car. I'm sorry, there's a car there. And I'll drive around the block and then I'll come back and the car is gone. I'll be like, by the time I get back, I will have a parking spot right out front. And sure enough, I would say about 40 to 50% of the time it does work, actually, where if I drive around the block and come back, I'll see somebody leaving that spot, or the spot will already be vacant. So the reason I mention that is to just set your intentions and speak it into action. I fully believe it works. And if you truly believe it works, it will work. It may not work all the time, because maybe there's a lesson in it, or maybe, there's certain reasons why certain things are unfolding the way they do. It's kind of like, why am I late today? Well, maybe there was a reason. Maybe there was something that you missed, which was a good thing to miss. Should I take all levels of Reiki before I take SRT LSR training? You need a psychic protection course. Reiki is not the important thing. It's the psychic protection. Thank you, Michelle, by the way. Yeah. Reiki is a good thing to have. Don't get me wrong. In fact, Tina and I are finishing up that Reiki 2 course. She's been working very hard on her presentation. Go, Tina. But yeah, that Reiki 2 course will be up. We'll be doing that in August. We'll have the sign up ready in a couple weeks. Actually, probably even maybe by the end of this week. We're just getting some things in order first. Leanne says, my guides told me to ask for anything, even a parking spot, and it truly works. It's funny. When I went to class with the QHHT crew, this was back in 2019, we went to Egypt together, and we were in this class in Egypt. And Julia told this story to everybody. And it was quite a funny story, so I'll tell you really quick. There was a client that came to Dolores for a for a hypnosis session. And she said that there, is there any questions? What do you want to know? And the only question the woman had was, can you fix my stereo? And they looked at her like, what? That's the only thing you want to know? She's like, yeah, I want to know about my past lives, and whatever comes out, comes out. It's fine. But the only actual question I really have for my higher self or whoever is if they can fix my stereo. And they looked at her like, seriously? Like, I mean, you're paying like all that money. Fine. Okay. Yeah, we'll fix your stereo. And sure enough, they start going through they do the past life journey where they go through the past lives. And then they, they go to the point where you can ask the higher self. And she goes to the higher self, hey, she just asked if you could fix her stereo. And the higher self is like, done. She's like, huh? Like, done. Yeah, it's fixed. She was like, really? Okay. I mean, and sure enough, the woman goes home and the radio worked perfectly. It stopped glitching out and causing problems like it was. Who knows what it was? There could have been a portal in the damn radio. There could have been, an Earthbound attached to it. There could have been just a wire short. Who knows? But the soul guides or whoever it was fixed it for her. So I thought that was really funny. The fact that you can even just say to your higher self, hey, fix something for me. And then even something that is physical can be fixed. Luke says, what's the best Dolores book? That's a tough one. Best one to start with is Between Death and Life. For beginners, I don't think there's a better book for spirituality, for understanding things, from a beginner standpoint. Between Death and Life absolutely is one of the best. If you are a starseed, if you believe you are a starseed, one of her books, The Three Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth, phenomenal book as well. If you're a starseed, that book will change your life. It will explain things that will help you understand why your life is the way it is. So much of that book resonated. And then they're all good. They're all really good, to be honest. But the Convoluted Universe series is my favorite. There's 5 books in the Convoluted Universe. And that's where her most interesting cases are. Her most interesting sessions are in there. There's 5 of them, and they're like that thick. But you know what's funny? Dr. Scott sent me a book that reminds me very much of it. And I brought my mail over to my mom's house because I had a whole bunch of stuff to unpackage. And Dr. Scott's book was among them. And I left the book on the table, and my muggle sister looks at the book, picks up the book, opens it up, goes straight to the chapter with the pirate captain. And she's like, what? Pirates? I love pirates. And I was like, go ahead, read some of it. And I came back 20 minutes later and she was still reading it. And I was like, haha, got her. Like, yeah, go ahead, keep reading, huh? Let me know what you think. Because my muggle sister thinks I'm completely nuts. But I'm telling you, hypnosis is where you get them. That's where, because it's just so believable. Like, the more you go into hypnosis, you start to, exactly, seeds planted. This is the important thing, is just meet people where they're at. If I were to walk up to my sister and tell her about the reptilians that I have to deal with on a fucking daily basis, she would want to have me acquitted. Like, she would have that acquitted, what do you call it? She'd want to have me basically thrown into a loony bin. I do feel that certain things are way too much for certain people to hear. But talking about past life resonances and just talking about some of the past life history we have, some people are quite more open, committed. Thank you. My brain wouldn't work this morning. I told you I didn't get enough sleep. So I really feel that sometimes when people are so close-minded about this stuff, there's no point. Like, don't even bother trying. But I was really stunned to see that she was even slightly interested in it. So thank you, Dr. Scott, for having such an interesting book to start planting seeds with. So I don't recommend starting with the Convoluted Universe series of Dolores's, because they will pickle your brain a little bit. And don't even bother. Honestly, I had the worst time reading the Nostradamus series. Did anybody actually get through? Raise your hand if you've tried to read the Nostradamus series, and who's actually finished reading the Nostradamus series? Because my brain couldn't handle it. Nope. It's not even that it couldn't handle it. I wasn't resonating with a lot of it. All the Antichrist stuff was immediate turnoff. And it was just very, very different to all her other books. So, yeah, the Nostradamus series, I mean, I found it interesting to a degree at the beginning. But the more I read on, the more I was just like, eh. Though I really do think that everybody should be reading Between Death and Life. If you haven't gotten a copy of Between Death and Life, I highly recommend getting it. Between Death and Life is probably one of the best books you could give as a gift to people too, because it's like a soft segue into this work. Summer said, I read all 3 Nostradamus books, didn't necessarily enjoy it. I read 21 of 23 of her books, and the only 2 I didn't read were the 2 of the Nostradamus books. So those 2 books, for some reason, after reading the first one, I was like, nah. Audiobooks are really good though, to be honest. It's how I got through 21 books. I do a lot of traveling. So yeah, on the audiobooks, I highly recommend. It does make it a lot easier. Keepers of the Garden was a really good book. Connie says some of the Dolores Cannon books are on Spotify. If you pay the membership, they are included. There you go. So there's a couple of you that didn't resonate. I do wonder if the client had been compromised. Because all that Antichrist stuff, it reminds me very much of like all that drama that was unfolding back in the day with all the witch burnings and the Inquisition and all that. I almost said institution. See, my brain is not working today. The Inquisition, all of that, that's what it reminds me of. Michelle said maybe Julia wrote them. Julia didn't even write her own book. Soul Speak was actually written by Dolores, for the record, and Dolores gave that honor to her. Soul Speak was not written by Julia. That's another big secret that a lot of people don't know. Dolores wrote that and put Julia's name on it for her. Because Dolores is the sweetest woman in the whole world. The Horned Goddess was really good, but that also wasn't written by Dolores technically. That was written by her other daughter who was compiling sessions together. So there's if you notice there's certain things about certain books you start to recognize, you're like, something seems a little different about this. Yeah, that's why. There are certain things. If you order from Ozark Mountain Publishers, they sometimes have really great sales. Yes, that is owned by her other daughter. Her other daughter runs the Ozark Mountain Publishing side of things. And yeah, they do give great deals on occasions. I'm telling you though, if you haven't read Between Death and Life, that's the one I would start with. But my other favorite, especially for Starseeds, is the 3 Waves of Volunteers in the New Earth. Oh, I know Dolores is here. I can feel her. She's here right now because I'm talking about her. If you name drop anybody, they appear. Love you, Dolores. Sorry I'm letting out secrets today. I look at her like she's my fairy godmother. Like, I'm not even kidding. It's who she reminds me of. She's always, whenever you mention her, she appears. She really does. She is so involved in this work and in the work that we do as light workers that if you call her in, Dolores will come. She always does. That's how I know she's here right now, is she always comes. In fact, she'll pop in during sessions all the time. I'll be doing clearings and talking with with the medium, and they're like, "Oh, Dolores is here." She visits all the time. In fact, she told me she visits more than I know. She doesn't announce herself when she comes. Love you, Dolores. Thank you for everything you do, even now. Yes, I've had chills for the last 5 minutes. She changed my life path. She changed a lot of people. She changed thousands of people's life path. She was one of the most important people in my entire life. If it wasn't for her, I don't know what I would have done after my astral projection. Because I was so confused and so lost and so, like, my brain felt like it had fractured a little bit. Because it's when you have a life-shattering experience and nobody knows the things you're going through, it makes it so much more challenging. And Dolores had all the answers I needed. That's why I got pretty much obsessed with her work. And I mean, Between Death and Life, I probably read that one book 20 times. Not only because I was making quotes for memes from it for 5 years, but just in general, like, there's so many different things that I would have to go and use it as a reference point. So, yep, some of you guys have been even following me since that page. Because that's how I grew this page from the beginning. It was that I was telling everybody, hey, follow me on my other page, please. Did you get to meet her in person? No, unfortunately not. But we're on a very close basis now. She comes in all the time. In fact, when I was working, and I didn't even know this, that for that 5 years that I was answering questions, God, so many hours every day, and I would be trying to answering them from her perspective. Like, I would want to answer the question the way she would want it to be answered. And after I talked with Zach about this, and he goes, "You do realize you were channeling Dolores like that whole time, right? You would call her in as you would say, how would Dolores answer that?" She'd be like, pss, pss, pss. She would tell you how to answer it. And that's why you answer the way you did. And she's like, they said that actually kind of helped us work out. It's almost like a close partnership. in a way. But we knew each other in a past life. I was also with her in the Library of Alexandria. My guides told me I watched her get hit by the chariot that came and took her out in that lifetime. It was very, very upsetting. So we were close friends in the Library of Alexandria as well. You guys are gonna get me all weepy now because I'm like all nostalgic now. Love you guys. It's such an honor to still be hanging out with you all, even years later. But it was really nice chatting with you guys this morning. Thank you so much for joining me and for spending so much time with me today. Summer says, look at us now, a big old soul family. Exactly, Summer. We're all so blessed to have each other. We really are. In fact, many of us knew each other in past lives too. That's why we have this great love for each other. Speaking of which, I just wanted to say, for those of you who are interested in coming to Missouri, we do have a couple spaces left open. In fact, there's only one person that's coming for the entire week. So we've actually got some, what's the word? We have an ability to help out a couple people if they want to only come for the weekend or something, because we have a couple days where certain rooms are going to be open. So if you would really like to come to Missouri, please contact Bradley or I, and let's work something out and find a way to get you there. Because to be able to hang out in person and be able to spend time together in person, there's nothing better. It's one thing to hang out every day and chit chat over, a screen, but to be able to come and spend a few days together and hang out, there's no words to put it into perspective and how awesome it is. So let's make it happen. If you really want to come to Missouri and hang out with Bradley and I and a few others, please do let us know. We would like to make it happen. Chantal says, I'm coming for Poiki with Oma in February. Please do. In fact, Chantal, we're even talking about doing a week in the bush and then a week down south. So if you want to come up to the bush with us, let us know. I'm homesick. I am. I'm homesick for Kruger Park. I really am. It's my favorite place in the whole world. I adore Kruger Park. Why do you think I'm sitting here watching rhino videos at 11 o'clock at night? Let's make a plan to have a bush adventure in February, yeah? Because I would love that. Have a South African adventure. I'll take you guys up to the stone circles. It'll be a lot of fun. Lots of love, everybody. Take care. Bye, everyone.